In the freezing early hours of 1944, a small group of soldiers moved slowly through a snow-covered forest. The silence was so deep that the sound of their boots felt too loud. Every step carried fear, exhaustion, and uncertainty. They were cut off from the rest of their unit, with no clear communication, following old orders that might no longer matter. In that moment, the war was not about strategy or flags. It was about survival. Hours earlier, the same group had been caught in a sudden attack. Chaos spread instantly. Explosions, screams, smoke. When everything finally stopped, many were gone. Those who remained gathered instinctively, without words, exchanging looks that said everything. They didn't know if the enemy was still nearby, or if dawn would bring rescue or more danger. As the day passed, the cold began to overpower their fatigue. Hunger set in, and every bullet was counted carefully. One of the soldiers was wounded and could barely walk. Even so, no one left him behind. They took turns supporting him, knowing it reduced everyone's chances. In that brutal setting, solidarity still survived. When night fell, they found an abandoned cabin. There was no comfort, only shelter. Inside, the group rested for the first time in many hours. Some slept. Others stayed awake, staring into nothingness, thinking about their families, their lives before the war, and whether they would ever see them again. Time felt suspended. When morning finally came, it carried the distant sound of vehicles. They didn't know if it meant salvation or another threat. They prepared as best they could. Their bodies were shaking, but their minds were steady. Whatever came next, they had made it that far together. And in a war defined by destruction and countless losses, that alone was an act of resistance. The sound grew louder as the minutes passed, engines cutting through the quiet morning air. The soldiers pressed themselves against the cabin walls, weapons raised, breaths controlled. Through a crack in the wood, they watched shadows move between the trees. Every second stretched painfully, each man bracing for the moment that would decide everything. Suddenly, voices echoed in the distance. They spoke a familiar language. Relief washed over the group, but it came mixed with disbelief. After days of isolation, hope felt almost dangerous. One soldier stepped outside slowly, hands visible, heart racing. The others followed, still ready to react if the situation turned against them. The approaching unit stopped when they saw the survivors emerge from the trees. Faces hardened by weeks of combat, softened for just a moment. No one celebrated. No one smiled. They simply nodded, understanding without words what the others had endured. A medic rushed forward, kneeling beside the wounded man, while the rest stood in silence, letting the tension drain from their bodies. As they were escorted away, the forest faded behind them. Smoke still rose in the distance, a reminder that the war was far from over. Yet something had changed. They were no longer alone. The weight they carried felt slightly lighter, not because the danger had passed, but because it was now shared again. Later that day, as they sat near a fire wrapped in blankets, one soldier stared into the flames. He knew the memories of the forest would never leave him. The fear, the cold, the faces of those who didn't make it. But he also knew this moment, this fragile pause between battles, would stay with him just as strongly. Proof that even in the darkest hours of war, endurance, loyalty, and humanity could still survive.